Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Post in Black, where we celebrate Black excellence behind the lens. Today's episode, you're going to like it a lot because we have music and film composer Dara Taylor. Dara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's hot out there, but I'm doing great.
My goodness. I mean, we're in Los Angeles. The heat has been crazy.
Yeah.
I had a layover in Dallas and Phoenix recently.
No, thank you.
My goodness. You talk about 97 degrees at 8:30 a.m. Yeah. I don't think so. That's crazy. But we're looking cool. We're looking good. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you being on Post in Black, and we're going to jump right into an icebreaker. Try to cool it off since it's hot out here. You know what I mean? You are a music composer for film and television. What is in your playlist or on your playlist this year? What are your top 3 to 5 songs this year, 2023?
Oh wow! I don't update my playlist.
Oh, it's okay.
Often.
No, it could be old school. Anything you listen to from years past. What are you listening to this year? Maybe?
I listen to a lot of stand-up comedy while I'm in the car.
Okay.
Just because I like to clear my head of the music. But I listen to. I don't know. I've got kind of a folksy soul.
Okay.
There's this indie group from Brooklyn that I listened to a lot when I lived there called Elizabeth and the Catapult.
Okay.
And there's this album from 2009 that I still listen to over and over again. I love like Imogene Heap and I don't know, just things with
no, that's classic.
Fun sounds.
No, that's classic. You gave me 3. You did give me the comedy specials you listened to.
Yeah.
You gave the 2 artists. That's cool. I mean, you said 2009. I mean, I don't know if there's any Mama's Gun, Erykah Badu fans out there, but I'm still rocking that all the time. So that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
that's perfectly fine. Okay, that's good. That's good. Well, I know you're here. I know what you do a little bit, but for those that are just tuning in or watching, can you tell the people a little bit about yourself? You mentioned living in Brooklyn. Where are you originally from, if you want to mind sharing that?
Originally, I was born in Poughkeepsie, but I left when I was 2.
Okay.
And I grew up outside of Buffalo.
Oh, wow.
In this little suburb of Buffalo called Lockport.
Wow.
And, there's a canal and there's, hot dogs and ice cream stands and the whole the whole thing. But so pretty like suburban living growing up. And then I did my undergrad at Cornell, and then I did a master's program in New York, and I stayed in New York for a while. Wow. My parents were both originally from New York, so and I still have family out there, so it felt like home. That's like kind of where I started my formative years. So I say I'm a New Yorker until I meet like a real New Yorker who's like born and raised there, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry.
No.
But to the LA crowd, I'm a New Yorker.
No, you're definitely New Yorker. I feel that. We talked a little bit. I have an aunt and a cousin that went to Cornell.
Yeah.
And, New York is definitely like that. We have family, most of our family's from Philadelphia, but then we have the ones that are from Queens and live in Harlem. And I hear what you're saying because, New York is like, where you from? They get on people from Queens. They're like, Queens ain't even New York. It's Queens. It's like, all right. So
it's a lot of subcategories.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Oh, it's a lot of that. People that live in Florida have been out there 30 years. They're still from New York. So you are from New York. Can you talk about that, though, a little bit? Like, what was it like growing up and like, obviously, maybe there was an escape, you say the suburbs to television, entertainment. Sometimes we hear about that, like, oh, this got me into the arts. Were you in the arts a lot in school where you grew up? Or
my mom was the choir director of her church. So she was always, playing piano. My dad always listened to records. We had a room in our house called the record room, which I thought was a room that everyone had in their house. I'm like, where's your record room? And they're like, we don't have one. What is that? And I'm like, oh, okay, this is something specific to the Taylor household. Yeah. But it was a room filled with records. And there was like an organ in there and a bunch of keyboards and stuff. My mom used to say I would, when I was young, I would just climb in her keyboard case and zip myself up and like fall asleep next to the speakers. It was always been a thing that I've surrounded myself with. And, my mom was the first one to teach me like how to pick out the alto part from that, from that song. So, but no, I grew up in the school bands, and the choruses, and the show choirs, and the musicals, and the whole thing.
I want to say, actually, follow up on something you just said. Your mom would tell you how to pick out certain things. That means, like, those of you that are listening may not know about music. You had an ear. You know what I mean? Would you say your ear was pretty trained early on from like doing things like that?
Yeah, mom? I mean, yeah, I think you get attuned to certain things and what you're exposed to. But yeah, because she was she played a lot, but she wasn't necessarily classically trained, so she played a lot by ear.
Right.
So she would listen to a Kirk Franklin song, and then like she would have to teach all these people in the choir their parts. And she would just do that by listening to it over and over again, and hear, okay, that's a soprano line, and like following the line, and and then she would remember what all those were.
Okay,
because I don't even think she wrote it down. She just kind of remembered what they were, and then would teach other people.
My goodness. So for you, growing up, when you went to Cornell, was that already like, okay, I'm going to Cornell, I have a music interest, or was it later on that you found that you wanted to get into it? Can you talk about that? I know I'm jumping.
Yeah,
no. It's interesting.
I applied to Cornell as a computer science major.
Wow.
And I took absolutely zero computer science courses. But I had friends in high school that were like, "Oh, well, you're always in music. Why don't you go and do music?" And I'm like, do what with music?
Right.
Like, sure, it's something that I love, but I'm like, what am I going to do with this? Because all I really knew was performing.
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't really want to be a performer for the rest of my life. I mean, it's not that I have stage fright, but I just
wasn't the avenue.
Yeah, it wasn't the avenue. But as soon as I got there, I still took all the music classes, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll double major in music and something else. It's like a practical backup. But like at first I was going to do like Near Eastern studies as a backup. I don't know what you do with that, but like I learned Hebrew. I learned I was like taking classes on like the Middle East, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this either. It was just fun to learn things. But I ended up studying psychology, which it's just also not practical.
No, but. It's funny, you're mentioning this, and obviously I have the unfair advantage of working backwards. Yeah. So I know where you are now, but you're talking about all the things that you did, and I'm seeing the patterns, how it's kind of putting it all together in terms of giving you the knowledge of wealth to work on so many different projects per se, even there. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but you're at Cornell, not taking any of your classes that you went there for, doing that. What is the thing? Because being in New York and then coming to California, working in music entertainment, how did you even get that bug? What was it for you that kind of clicked, or was there something that just like hit? Somebody always says like, oh, I was watching this show, or I listened to this podcast, or what was it for you that started to get you on the journey to where you are?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, before when I would hear people talk about like, oh, this is their aha moment, I'm like, oh, they're making that up.
Yeah.
But I really did have an aha moment. I'm like, okay, that's what this is. It was, I guess it was kind of a long, it was a few moments. Like, like it was freshman year, I was in my music theory class, and I heard one of my classmates, she was saying like, oh, I want to write movie music. Wow. And I'm like, yeah, I guess that is a career. And then like a year passed, and I didn't really think about it. And then I listened to so much film music. I had my little Sony Ericsson brick phone. The ringtone was the theme from Gone with the Wind, and I'd play like the Pirates of the Caribbean thing and all that stuff. But I was listening to the score for the 2005 Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe by Harry Gregson Williams, and I was listening to this, and I listened to it lots of times. So I was just listening to it, and I was just like sitting in my dorm room sophomore year, and I'm like, maybe it's this. And then I just kind of like flung myself with reckless abandon and hope for the best. But
that is interesting. That is an aha moment. Would you say? I'm so curious because I kind of am trying to figure out where to start as well. What you say? Okay, film music. How do you get started with that? How do you say, okay, I want to do film music? Because it's one thing to say I want to do it, but then where do you go? Where do you look at, okay, all right, how do I you just start writing and say, I wrote something. Hey, you're shooting. Would you like to put this on your project? What is that like?
Yeah, it's a long process. Still figuring out what it's like. But no, I think what I did was, I started studying kind of contemporary classical composition, because that was, more of a focus at that institution than film music was, at least at the time. So I started studying under under one of the DMA students, one of the grad students, which is usually where the undergrads start learning, Zachary Wadsworth, and he was wonderful. And he was just really encouraging. Like, I was still writing like concert music, but I felt safe. And I think with each of my steps, I need to find some point of safety. Where I'm like, okay, because it's such a personal thing, and you feel so naked, and it's scary. And why I work with my friends so much.
Why does it feel like that? Can you explain that? Because to the outside looking in, you're like, what you're trying to find out, like, what is the process? Why does it feel like? Do you feel like it's like just being vulnerable, opening yourself, like, this is what I feel sounds good, and I hope you like it? Is that
basically?
Basically.
You need like a lot of outside validation, like more than like your therapist probably say that you should, to get you to that next level of just comfort. But I mean, you're just sitting alone with the blank piece of paper or a blank screen, and especially in concert music is one thing. It's because you're just making it for the sake of making it, you know? And this is just your own expression.
Right.
But when it comes to film music, you are the sonic voice of this whole story that people have been working on for years, especially like with animation. People have been working on this for like 7 years.
Yeah.
And you come in and you're like, I help. So it's, because it's such a team effort. You feel the pressure sometimes. But with it being a team effort, you also get lots of hopefully great direction to make it sound the best for everyone. But it's still a scary thing sometimes, where you just like, this is an idea that I had, and I hope that it feels as good to you as it does to me.
That's really good. I mean, we could rattle off your credits, going from Invitation to Noel Diary, I mean, to Tender Bar. Like, there's a lot of films and projects that you worked on, and even the one more recently. Can you talk about what it's like getting the call or getting the opportunity to work on a project? What is that process like for you as a composer? Because sometimes we know what it's like for actors, for auditions. We even know what it's like for pitch meetings. What is it like for a composer? Do you have representation, agents, and all of that? And do you put yourself out there like, here's my body of work? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's just I have a great agent, Sarah Kovacs at Craft Angle, and I mean, she's great because I am sometimes soft, and I need someone to be a better advocate for me than I am for myself. But it's just a series of relationships, and you could talk about like how you got the jobs that you got, but there's also all these other jobs that you didn't get, or that you got, as I call, silver medals for. And people ask, how's it going? I'm like, just getting rejected for higher and higher profile things. So things are going well. Things are going well. But I mean, there's so many relationships to at least get your name across someone's ear. And then from there, you send out a reel. But and then maybe have a meeting with the filmmakers or the studio execs, or the producers, or sometimes do a demo specifically for the project. But I mean, I've been up for things by a lot of different relationships. I mean, some of it is, working with someone before. I had worked with the director of Strays, Josh Greenbaum, before, when I co-scored Barb and Star Go to Visit Del Mar with Chris Leonards. So that was one pre-existing relationship. But, I still sent in a reel. I still had a meeting. There's a whole list of things, but like music editors and post supervisors and studio execs and like all these people that I've been very fortunate to like have my back. That it was like, hey, you should talk to Dara. And then whatever happens from there is on me and on the how good I am for the project. But
I think you're touching on something. It is a relationship-based, business, and a lot of times people say, "Oh, it's who you know," and I think that's true. But I think it's who knows you, because when people who know you are in positions, then you can know the person in position, but if they don't know you, it's not really a give.
That's true. Yeah.
Now you're putting yourself out there, but when it comes to the certain material, is there something that jumps out to you more? Because we're going to talk about Strays. I don't know if you've all have seen the film yet or even seen the trailer, but it's probably one of the most, like, it catches you. You're like, you ever hear something and then you're like, wait, what? And you have to go like watch it and rewind it to see if it's what it was.
That's not what they said.
That's not
right?
what they said at all.
It is.
In the first 10 seconds of the trailer for Strays, it is clear that this is not your normal movie with pets talking or animals talking or anything.
No.
What is it like for you? What kind of choices go into you picking a script or picking a project that you want to work on as a composer?
I mean, I love kind of subverting expectations, which this film definitely does. I love just working with fun people too.
Yeah.
And fun people doesn't always have to mean that people are happy at the end of the story. It could just be, I worked with this great director, Jess Thompson, on The Invitation, and that is a very different movie. Lot more, still fangs, but in a different way.
Yeah.
But she was just so great to work with, and it's like we all chose these jobs because they're fun at the end of the day, right? Mm-hmm. If we wanted to be super serious all the time, we'd be accountants, but we're not.
Right.
So I mean, I try and have the best time I can, and that doesn't mean that there aren't notes and there aren't rewrites and all of those things, but we're all working together to make the best thing that we can. And just like I am at the beginning, hoping that someone else likes it, we hope that the viewers and the audience
like it too.
It's like, this is this thing that we poured our heart and soul into. Please like it.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
No, I could see right now why people want to work with you. Mm-hmm. Just your energy and the breath that you breathe into the room, and then when you get on the project, that excitement, you want people to be excited about what they're working on.
Yeah.
And just from the outside looking in, again, I haven't seen the film yet, but I'm planning to. Strays, when you watch this film or see the trailer, it seems like there's excitement and there's joy. Was it that way for you? Obviously, putting everything together, composing pieces for this. What was that process like for you working on this project? Talk about how you even got the project. I remember you said you worked with a previous individual on it, but can you talk about that, the process of working on it and then getting the job? Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that one of I think it was someone in the editorial department at the edit bay when I would go and have score reviews.
Yeah.
He would see me coming and close the door because he knew that we were going to be in there next door laughing hard, like for 2 hours. Yeah. And you go through and we talk about, sometimes we talk about a cue 6 seconds at a time. So it could be a long process.
Right.
But again, we're just trying to breathe as much life into it as we can. And it's a funny thing. And you get to hear little stories about maybe this line used to be this, or he ad-libbed that, and it's just a fun time. But I mean, basically after I was hired at the script process.
Oh, wow.
So it was right before they started shooting.
Okay.
And I would get dailies just to see some semblance of what the dogs were doing and what they look like. It's not like you do a film with Cameron Diaz and you know who Cameron Diaz is. You know what her voice prosody is. I mean, I guess we know who the voice actors are, but there's something that you get from actually watching footage. So from there, I started, playing around with some themes and all of that. I think originally I sent Josh, the director, just the first idea of a theme, and I kind of did it to this sequence in the script. And I sent him just the music, but then I also did it with me narrating.
Throw yourself in
all
there.
this potty mouth things. And I'm just to see where my head was when I wrote this, sort of a thing. And then after they finished and kind of got a rough assembly together and a director's cut, then we went in and spotted and
that's
kind of barreled forward from there.
That's just amazing. And I think one of the things you talk about, just again, the joy that I'm getting from you, it's seeing these titles with your name and not knowing that it's somebody that kind of looks like us, like myself, like my brother who founded the podcast. And I want to talk about that a little bit too, because that's something we want to encourage more people to get into film. behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's it like for you, being a Black woman and then working on these big projects like you're working on and getting the opportunities that sometimes people may not even know, oh, not just a woman, that's a Black woman working on that. Can you speak to that and how that feels?
Yeah. I mean, everyone I think approaches it differently.
Yeah.
And the nicest way to say this is I try not to think about it.
Yeah. No, I get
you.
Yeah.
There are there are lots of there have been and there will be lots of instances where I am the only woman in the room or the only Black person in the room or the very likely the only Black woman in the room.
Yeah.
But I think that the more everyone is concentrated on the story and getting the task at hand done, the less everything feels like an assignment, or a, look at how important this is, like let the importance be the fact that we're here.
Yeah.
But I think that the more you harp on just let me find the best way to say that.
I feel like I'm getting, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like it's like, that's what people are striving for.
Yeah.
Just the opportunity. I just want to be in the room and not have it be this big thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, look at my skill set. Look at how great it is that you enjoy this. We're laughing, all that. Oh, yeah, I'm Black.
Yeah.
But sometimes, whether it's in front of the camera, behind the scenes, it can seem like you get pigeonholed, or it's like, we spoke to many editors and they're like, oh, you cut on this Black film or this Black TV show, that's what you do.
Yeah.
But not necessarily always the case for yourself and just some of the content that you've been able to work on. I think that's a really a big blessing in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. And I love working on all content, but
yeah, for sure.
I was talking to a friend about this recently, and he was like, yeah, but there's just so many more Black stories being told. And I'm like, you're right. That's true, which is great.
Yeah,
it's like, why you're up for so many things and, inner city this, inner city that. I mean, I think the important thing is to realize that no race is monolith.
Right.
And that, while there are things that I can obviously relate to much faster and with less research, I remember I was in a recording session and someone said the word benediction, and I'm like, and no one else in the world, no one else in there was like, what are you talking about? Like, there's a shorthand in some instances. I'm like, okay, I know exactly what you mean. I don't need to research this.
Right.
But
that is hilarious.
So there are obviously like some shared experiences, but I think in a world that is as diverse as it is, I think it's important to always relate back to the central humanity.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Yeah. And that's really powerful. And I think I want to keep encouraging people on that facet, but it's just something that you notice and you're like, wow, you got through there. That's a really awesome opportunity. And it's not just about like, oh, I don't want to cut anything that's Black, or I don't want to cut anything. Here I have a knowledge, but I'm skilled. I'm a composer.
Yeah.
I'm not just a Black composer. I'm a composer. I make music. I love music. We grew up listening to a lot of the shows we grew up watching didn't really include some of our people. Sometimes, I remember watching TGIF and I'm over there sitting there watching Step by Step and all that and everything. And I'm like, no, I was interested in the story.
Yeah.
Obviously, I love my other shows too, but it's like, I think people on the other position sometimes don't always think that. They're like, oh, no, they like this. This is...
I remember very distinctly when Gabrielle Union was on Friends. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't write a think piece about it, but you see it and you're like, huh.
Right.
And like sometimes it's just like that little recognition that's important.
That's all.
But and also not to, I definitely don't want to gloss over the fact that, I got to wherever it is I am with a lot of help. Yeah. And like I needed people to champion me.
Yeah.
And, they championed me through, seeing that I was, I did well. I good work as a composer, but I also did good work as an intern. I got the coffee on time and all those other things.
Right.
Like, I worked for Chris Leonard's for like 5.5 years, and I learned so much, and I met so many people, and he introduced me to people during that time. And like, there are just so many, music supervisors and studio execs and all these people that have really been my cheerleaders to like get my, again, like, hey, you should talk to Dara. It doesn't happen alone. And I think that's the important thing to realize too. It's like no one props themselves up completely.
Not at all.
And if you do, great on you. But I wasn't one of those people.
No, that's not a lot of people. It's not a lot of people. And if you're doing that, it's not necessarily all the way true.
Yeah,
I would ask you this: what was some of the best advice that you feel like you got on your journey up? From working on maybe your first earlier projects and being the intern and working behind the scenes, and then now stepping into a larger room and your first big project where you were like, this is going to be different. What was some of the advice that people may have given to you that sticks out that you can remember at least?
I mean, I think just being the best you can at the job you have is always great. Don't be too precious.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, because there's a lot of cues and pieces that you might write or themes. You're like, oh man, I love this. This is great. Like all those like, hey, please like this. Sometimes they don't like it, or sometimes it's not that they don't like it. It just doesn't fit for this project or this scene or something like that. And I have a very robust graveyard of demos and ideas and things that I that I pull from. But like, trying not to get as attached, but still have a point of view. And sometimes you're able to explain that, and then it's like maybe it's a weeding back of ideas and
I got you.
And that sort of thing. So so not being too precious as far as writing goes, and then there's been again a wealth of advice that I can't really pinpoint at the moment. But
I think that's really helpful, because sometimes we may hang on to things and we get so attached to them. Yeah. And it's like, no, you keep it moving. I want to ask you actually, some advice you would maybe be able to give, because you talked about, we're talking about the wins and strays, and that's out now and people are watching and enjoying. But can you talk about those no's and how they affected you and what you learned from those as well? Because I think that's something, especially like with the pandemic that we had and the strike going on, there's a lot of people that may be hurting or dealing with rejection or just the weight, and they don't know how to cope with it. And it seems like it's a normal occurrence.
It really is. And like, it's weird. Like 2022, I was riding high, I'm like, I'm doing this feature and writing this show and all the show. And that movie's canceled now. Okay. Oh, that didn't happen. And in 2023, I think 2023 has been a weird year with all the strikes also, because I think a part of me was starting to like, sniff that glue high of like the next new gig, like getting the gig. It's like, oh, the gigs aren't here.
Not here. They're not
for you to get.
They're not
so
coming.
Like, you got to find your own joy. Which is still hard and still something I'm figuring out. But again, I think appreciating the silver medals is a thing that I tell people, especially like a lot of friends are like, oh man, well, I just lost out to this person and this person. I'm like, yeah, but like, look at that person that you just lost out to. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's like the top, like, you know what I mean?
I'm like, I'll lose lots of jobs to Pinar Choprak. It's I think it's just like realizing that it's such a long it's a long career. And I, something I would also often tell, like college students and stuff, it's less like a ladder, especially if you're not going to like a conservatory, like, and you're going to like a larger university like I did. You're going to have a lot of friends that are in finance or that are in this or that are in, these other, career paths where there is a ladder, and you go to that rung, and then you go to that rung, and you go to that rung, and this there is no ladder. There is a rock climbing wall. And sometimes you just kind of hold on to, one of those little footholds for as long as you can. And sometimes you're able to grab this one, but sometimes you have to grab this one over here in order to stay alive.
Right.
So don't be afraid to go back sometimes if necessary. And just know that eventually, I guess the other thing about rock climbing walls to me is like, where is the end? I did a talk for Grammy Camp a couple of weeks ago, and one of the students asked, what was the first moment where you felt like you made it? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's not a high that you should chase. I mean, like, there are moments where you're like, hey, this feels like a summit.
Right.
I'm just going to keep on this climbing analogy, even though I've climbed once in my entire life and not very well. But from what I think I know about climbing, it's like you find these summits, but you can't stay there for very long. Otherwise, you're gonna freeze to death.
Right.
This analogy is going off the rails. But I think just finding enjoyment in the work that you have.
Yeah.
And finding, some sort of new accomplishment, whatever that might be for the year. I just do year by year. Like, what is my new accomplishment this year?
Oh, wow.
Maybe it's like being nominated for this thing, or maybe it's just like, hey, this is the first time I worked in this genre and that sort of thing. Like, for me, that's like how I've been kind of going along my journey.
Your career. No, I'm going to ask you a question here, but I already got your next project if you haven't signed on already. It's the Dara Taylor comedy special. And you're going to compose your own comedy. You're going to be the first person to win an Emmy and or a Grant, whatever award you're going to get it. You are hilarious.
I actually did do a small amount of stand-up comedy. My boyfriend and I, we took a class at the Clown House downtown with Adam Barnhart because we lived downtown when we first moved to LA. We like at the end of the class, there's like a showcase at the Belly Room at the Comedy Store. So I've 4 whole sets.
We need the videotape.
No, you don't.
We need the videotape. No, that is hilarious. No, I think that's awesome. And you just talked about, I think the analogy of hanging on and rock climbing. And then it's so powerful because, my brother's purpose, even starting Posting Black, is like wanting to, invite people into the room, letting people know that this is an opportunity for you. And a lot of times, especially Black community, you see something, there's not a lot of Black people, you're like, oh, that's not for me. Not even knowing that you could go there. There's grocery stores. We could talk about neighborhoods. We can go down the line. And so even working in post-production, it's getting comfortable being, in spaces that maybe you haven't been in before, and just knowing that, okay, I can be the first, I can make an impact, and I can learn and pick up. You talked about that, saying to the kids, it's like, oh, how does it feel? You made it. That laugh. I think we all understand what that laugh is. It's like, whew, there is no made it. It's a continuous journey and path. You talked a little bit about, going year to year, but what does it look like for you moving forward? What challenges are you looking to take on in your field? Obviously this project Strays, I think, is a unique film, and it's something that's different. You can really like almost check a box like, wow, I've never done anything like that. And that's all. And then to be, a part with Will Ferrell, Jamie Foxx, all that, that's awesome. What do you feel like is another item or another project you want to take on to challenge yourself?
I've always wanted a heist. I think heist music is just like some of the most fun things to write. So even when there's like a small heist scene in a movie, I'm like, all right, let's do it.
That's fire.
So that's usually my answer. If I'm doing like a general meeting with someone too, it's like I let them know, like, this would be fun. So if you've got one, let me know. It's like, I could do this, I could do that, I could do that, but like not. The answer of everything isn't always useful. So pick something and try not to get too much FOMO.
Wow, that's a really powerful answer.
Yeah.
The heist movie. What is your favorite heist movie would you think that you've watched, or something that you've enjoyed?
I mean, I love like The Italian Job. I really love the things that Daniel Pemberton has done in the last decade now, I guess. Like Ocean's 8 and Molly's Game and those sorts of things, where you just kind of sort of redefined that genre musically. at least in my opinion. But yeah, I think that I just love friends getting in trouble, friends getting out of trouble, which is what Strays is too. Friends getting in and out of trouble. So like I love like buddy movies too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, we're not going to keep you forever here, but speaking to what you liked, what in your career has been one of your favorite pieces of music to compose for a project? It could be for TV or for film. What is something that you look back and you watch, you say, I really enjoy. I mean, I know I'm continuing on my journey, but I like that project. I really like this scene here. It doesn't even have to be something that everybody likes, but it stuck to you.
Yeah. I think that there's usually like a cue or a scene or two in every project where I'm like, this is going to be used on my demo reels more than this other thing, just because. And the fun thing is sometimes I ask someone else like, oh, what's your favorite cue? And it could be something completely different, which is like a thing that artists I think feel all the time.
Yeah.
Like real artists.
No, stop.
Where it's like, oh, that song hit. Okay, fine. Like my heart was in this one, but that's right. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that I had a lot of fun writing in the invitation, actually.
Okay.
Just because it was so, you're able to be weird. And like just I love being able to like make music out of, everyday sounds. Like the French call it like musique concrète. So I love like finding a way to do that. I use like some scraping sounds and sounds that or like weird vocal things because I was a vocalist. That was my instrument. So like doing things like and like
were you in the Grudge? You were in the Grudge?
No, I wasn't. But like
that was
like,
you.
Like all these like weird things, and then you put all this processing on. You're like, it sounds absolutely nothing like it. Yeah. So I think there were a few instances in the invitation that were really fun. Just me like playing in a sandbox. By myself in a room.
How long does it typically take you to put together something for a film and for a TV show? What is that timeline like? I mean, you could say the deadline tells me.
Yeah, the deadline does tell me. I mean, one of the great things to me about film and TV music versus concert music is that it is done at some point. Like, there's a point where you can't mess with it anymore. Yeah. Like, it's gone. Yeah. Just like, bye, I loved you.
Yeah.
Whereas like concert music, you can keep on reinventing it and all that stuff. But like, I feel like I need closure.
Yeah.
I guess. So I think Strays I was on for a while.
Oh wow.
For about a year, I think, from the time I did my first I sent my first kind of like theme exploration to like Printmaster was a year. Wow. But there were like, there were a couple pushes and all those things, but it was
about a year.
Yeah. But there are also things I've done in 2 weeks. So it depends.
The balance. Balance. Has there ever been a situation where you've had to, because you have that personality where you said even your agent's great and they fight for you, but have you ever been in a situation where you're working and it's like, no, I think this is good, or you don't have to name the project, but we had to like kind of, there's a little bit more back and forth and you had to really explain why you felt strong about something or why you felt so against it?
I think I'm very rarely against.
You said no.
Things.
I'm great. I send my one cut and they're good.
Yeah. No, but I mean most notes are beneficial.
Okay.
But there are times. There have definitely been times where I think the director has fought for something, and they're like, "No, we decided that we liked it this way, or we spotted it like this on purpose."
Yeah.
And then they explain their vision to the producer or the studio or whomever.
I got you.
But usually what I like to do is, especially if it's something I feel really close to, I'll at least explain why. Mm-hmm. And then if after hearing why, they're like, yeah, but no, it's like, that's fine. That's fine. Like, again, it's a team sport. Yeah. But I always like to explain why and then maybe we can like find somewhere in the middle or
middle ground. Yeah.
There's always the album mix if necessary.
There it is. Right. There it is.
If we're like, man, I love that horn line, but yes, it did step into dialogue. I'll put it on the album.
Yeah.
Right. That sort of thing.
Okay, I guess we need Jamie to get his line out for sure. Yeah. If people are like watching this interview, which we know they are, they're listening, why should they go see Strays?
Oh boy. I mean, the world is heavy. And this movie is pure joy.
It is.
If you love to laugh, if you love to like and also feel things, there's a lot of heart to it, which I think is great. Like there's as much heart as there is laughter, and neither feels contrived, which is an incredible feat whenever you're able to do something like that. Right. So it's just it's one of my favorite things I've ever worked on, honestly. From the director's cut, I'm like, I am obsessed with this movie. My boyfriend watched a little bit of the director's cut too, and he is a hard sell. So
really?
Like when I watch him laugh, I'm like, oh my God, this is
No, I'm telling you, I know this episode is coming out after the film has dropped, but I know I'm in the theaters this week to see it. And I can't wait. I can't wait. Where can people follow you or stay in touch with you? Are you on social media? Where can they keep up with what you're doing in the future?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram.
Okay.
Even though I rage quit that every now and then too. Instagram's probably the best way. I have a TikTok account just to claim the username, but there's nothing on it.
You just watch everybody else.
Twitter's a garbage heap, and I don't go on Facebook too much either because it's just a lot of complaining. So Instagram.
On the gram.
I'm on the ground, usually watching videos of dogs that talk with buttons and those sorts of things.
That is hilarious.
Like dogs and babies. Like that's what I try to have most of my content be. Yes.
Oh, that's the rabbit hole. Yeah, you can Instagram it. They'll get you.
Yeah.
They'll get you. Next thing you know, you look up. You're like, where am I
and
at?
The ads are so relevant. I'm like,
man.
I do want all of that.
I'm like, how you know what elementary school I went to? I didn't even say that.
I know this isn't an ad for Instagram, but
right. I know they're going to pin all this stuff when we post it. Nah, Dara, I can see why people want you on their projects. Your energy, it's infectious, and just hopefully one day outside of even Posting Black, we get to work together. Have you on something? It would be a joy. But we just want to thank you so much for coming to another episode for us and just coming out. Being with us. You were on the Guild of Music Supervisors was last year in person. So finally having you on the podcast, this has been a year in the making, literally. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Oh, this is awesome. And for those of you watching, we thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Post in Black. This has been a great episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe and like. Click that button right there. Yeah, subscribe and like it. And we'll see you next time on another episode of Post in Black. See you.